Hi, I'm Ali Zendrian, Editor-in-Chief of Brand News, and this is the Financial Services News You Might Have Missed podcast. This is where we find news gems that haven't gotten their full chance to sparkle and dust them off a little bit. I'm joined by my trusted financial advisor and co-host, Brandon Galisi of Galisi Financial. Brandon, how's your week been?
The week has been pretty good. In the process of onboarding another tax prep client because of just some of the nightmares in the tax preparation space that we were talking about before the podcast. So obviously, bummer that that person's going through that, but hopefully we're going to get it rectified and solved, and just more confirmation as to why I now started offering tax prep in my own practice.
It's hard to believe all those horror stories. No, actually, these are true. I wish that you had made them up, but they're not.
Right. The person's ready to do taxes and just gets ghosted by someone who she's worked with for a couple of years at least, and just stops responding to doing taxes. Again, it is the Wild West out there, unfortunately. So for those listening, if they already have someone great, hold on to them, because they're a dime a dozen for sure. But what about you, Ali? How's your week been?
It's been a good week. So Tuesday was my last day teaching for the semester. All the students finished up their final projects. I did have a glass of Prosecco on Wednesday. Nice. I still have to submit final grades, but yeah, it's hard to believe that the semester's over, and it was nice to experience all the students. I structured my class around basically it being a semester's long PR project. So there were different press releases and this and that. At first, it's a little jarring because it's different than academic work, but at the end, hearing oh yeah, this was good and it was different and it really made me think. I'm like, all right, it was worth it.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't realize that that's how you structured it. And honestly, I know we promise we'll talk about some financial services news in a moment, but that reminds me of my college experience, where I had professors who were actually doing tax returns, teaching the tax class, and had worked on Wall Street, were teaching investment courses and other planning courses, where it felt more case study, more real life, versus just here's textbook finance, or in your case, here's just textbook PR, which to some degree, some of that can be helpful, sure, but I'm biased because of my experience, but what you just shared sounds way better than just learning about PR from a textbook, from one legitimate PR professional as yourself with all of your experience. But then also you set it up where people actually learn how to do the thing, not just talk about how to do the thing. So kudos to you. That sounds awesome. And I'm sure the students got a lot from it.
Thank you. Well, at the very least, and again, we will get to financial news, I promise, but I never took a PR class. So in undergrad, I was studying English and journalism. My master's was in journalism. So I never experienced how to learn PR in a classroom setting. That to me is very foreign. So just to be able to look, this is what I would do on a regular basis. Do you want to try it too and see if you like it or you don't? That to me made sense. Well, I'm glad that it worked out.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense to me too.
Cool. So the financial news that we promised that we would get to. So our first bit of news for this week is from AtoZ Communications client Nitrogen, which announced among its several spring product updates that it has a new legacy center. They've gotten very interested in centers. There's Risk Center, there's Tax Center, the latest of the centers. This one enables an advisor to have a warm handoff to a client's either children and or beneficiaries before that client passes. So advisors can leverage Nitrogen's legacy map to show a client their financial picture, complete with retirement savings and plans for gifting and things like that. And then also send that plan through the legacy key to their clients' beneficiaries. So one of the benefits that I thought of this, and obviously you would know better because you're an advisor, but I presume to try to get to that next generation, you have to do you either email and it seems kind of hey, let me sell you into becoming my client, or oh, on LinkedIn, I saw that you might be related to so-and-so, and try to have this awkward conversation. I feel like this gives that legitimate conversation of, look, here is the plan so that at least you're aware of it. And by the way, obviously, if you need assistance, I so happen to do this for a living. Would love to get your thoughts on that.
I think the idea of more visuals, and in this case sounds like a simple visual, which we'll call it elegant simplicity. I did take that from Carl Richards, because it truly is complex behind the scenes. Estate planning and where all the assets might be going, especially depending on the situation, can be pretty complicated. But it sounds like this is going to be really focused on visuals and simplifying we'll call it the chaos and the complexity. And I think that alone, I'm really biased in favor of tools that help me as the advisor have more meaningful conversations with clients, whether that's educating them on something, whether that's presenting the plan in a different way because it's visually appealing and just simply makes sense. And so I could see this being really used by a lot of advisors. Now, I'm working typically with those younger clients to begin with. So likely I'm probably going to be the bad guy for some of the older advisors, because if my clients do inherit money, I'd, fingers crossed, like to think that they would stay with me versus move to their parents' advisor at this point. But I could see other advisors truly using this to have conversations with the parents or the grandparents, as using this visual tool to then maybe kick off a more warm introduction versus just, hey, you need to talk to my advisor if the parent's sharing that. And that doesn't get the warm fuzzies, versus now there's a deeper why behind it, because we understand the plan, and you probably should talk to someone so you're not trying to scramble if, when things eventually happen, everyone knows exactly what's going on.
I completely agree with you. And I think even just having that full picture, so the full picture all in one shot, I could imagine that being that family who gets left behind and everything is already tumultuous and tragic and crazy and whatnot, just having one place to look and be like, okay, so this is what we're supposed to do. I think that that's amazing. I also thought that it was interesting. So for the client, for all of this to really happen, the client has to be able to give permission and that contact information to the advisor. So, which totally makes sense, but it's also then it really is that warm handoff, because Betty Sue has already said, you can contact my son and my daughter and, my grandkid and whatnot, and here's their information for you, instead of you guessing or buying a list somewhere and hoping that their name is on there. It's really like, nope, please go ahead, go do.
Yeah, I think it tees up that conversation more. Like I said, there's a reason to connect versus, why is my parents' advisor reaching out to me? Just to make sure the assets stay is how it could feel potentially. But again, if there's this deeper why behind it of, oh no, we just want to make sure everyone's on the same page with the estate plan. And that is very true. I mean, when it comes to estate planning, we'll assume that the work has been done. It is really important that, in this case, the parents or grandparents are having conversations with kids while everyone's still alive, in the right mind, everything like that, because I'm sure we've all heard the horror stories of even the quote unquote perfect estate plan, if you will. If there weren't conversations ahead of time, there could be an argument on who gets what family heirloom and how things are split. Even if it's spelled out, there could be some things that unintentionally happen, things that accidentally got left out. I had a pastor growing up that said people get funny when you start talking about money. That is very true, especially when it comes to families and estates and everything like that. So I think anything that helps have that estate planning conversation just makes it a little bit easier. That's going to be a net positive.
Although to that point, I wonder to what extent you're like opening up the can of worms in advance of, and by the way, just so you know, like Johnny's going to get like 10% and he thought that he was getting 50%. And it's like, oh, well, great. I'm so glad that now I know that I'm grandma's least favorite grandson, but yeah, all of this stuff is tricky, but at the very least, so long as everybody's aware, and it would be good for the advisor to at least on some level have some level of communication with the family and the beneficiaries.
Yeah, absolutely. In that particular example, yeah, that one would be pretty uncomfortable. But likely, I'd like to think that there would be a reason, and it wouldn't be a surprise if someone is getting less. It's like, well, there might be a reason behind it, which is why there would be more estate planning if you're worried about a kid or a grandkid that maybe isn't the most responsible. We'll put it nicely today. There are some estate planning ways around making sure they can't just blow the money the second they get it. So yeah, each of those is going to be different. I was hoping for one, or at least in my mind, thinking of an example that was a little bit more straightforward, but just want to make sure that the heirlooms and things are relatively split. If we're just going to split everything 50-50, what if one of the kids wanted to actually live in the house? Well, how are they going to buy out the other person? Where it still ends up being equitable, but in the original estate planning, it might make it more tough versus if in that, again, nuanced example still, it's like, no, you could all get this investment account and you just fully get the house and we both are agreeing upon it. Like everyone is going to be okay with that. And then maybe things can get updated. And that was what I was hoping for versus that would be tough. Telling your least favorite grandkid, oh, you're getting the smallest amount.
Although, I mean, you would hope that it's not really a surprise to the least favorite grandkids, but I guess you never know.
Right.
No. Anyway, our second piece of news is also from an AtoZ communications client. In this case, it's Rossby Financial. Lindsay Evans was announced as the firm's new chief operating officer. Yay! She's the third woman leader to be added to the firm recently, including Greer Rubling, who is in the area of transition assistance, marketing, and business development, and Marissa Harris, their chief compliance officer. Just wanted to give them a shout out, and great to see more female leaders in the space. It's always good to see things getting more representative of the population. If there's anything you would like to add, you are welcome to.
Yeah, no, just congratulations and ditto to what you said. Nothing else to add, but it sounds great for Rossby.
Thank you. Our third piece of news is from Spinwheel. They created the new Credit Data AI Lab. What I found most striking about this was the quote in the press release from its co-founder that said, "Today, most AI in fintech is window dressing. They take an off-the-shelf LLM, slap an AI label on it using an existing use case, and call it innovation. But it's not durable. Our new Credit Data Lab, AI Lab, changes that." I thought that that quote was really interesting because it does seem like, especially, I don't know that I feel that much about it this year, but maybe that's just the echo chamber that I'm in. But I feel like in 2025, as we were hopping on this bandwagon of AI, everything was like, oh, it's AI, and like, it's a chatbot. Like, let's not like go crazy. So I thought that that was really interesting on their part. I would love to get your thoughts on this one.
I can relate to the same quote because it was AI is a buzzword, to your point, where in some cases it was great. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I could see how AI in this particular context is really useful. And then other times it really was just a chat GPT with some parameters, which again, maybe is a little bit helpful, but to the quote, how innovative? I mean, I guess we don't have to argue who's more innovative than the next person, but I do agree it wasn't terribly innovative. It's like, okay, you built something with the current existing LLM to the point. And I think now I haven't really used tons and tons of agentic AI yet, but I do think that's probably going to be the next wave that comes through, where I know one of the things that it talked about in the article specifically was accurate and defensible data. And especially, you want that for AI in general, but especially if you have these agents kind of behind the scenes, if you will, doing various tasks, you really need that data to be accurate and defensible, because it could be the best agentic AI ever, but if it's using bad data, it's going to make a lot more mistakes. So for that reason, I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, and just to highlight that a little bit further, this whole announcement was that Spinwheel had already created agentic AI, but now the Credit Data AI Lab enables their partners and clients to leverage these kind of innovations. So I would agree with you. I think now we're in the season of agentic AI, but again, also could be the echo chamber that I'm in. Nitrogen in particular, shout out to them again, introduced agentic AI, their nucleus, back in February. So it seems like this is where we are, but again, might just be because of who I'm surrounded by.
Yeah, fair. I mean, right now, Ali, are you using much agentic AI in your business?
I'm not using agentic. I do use Perplexity every now and then, but if I had to, so my brother-in-law is pretty good with AI in the tax space. If I could build one, I'm not going to lie, I would probably have it find the news for us for the week. But then I like sifting through it myself and being like, oh, that was a good quote. Oh, that was a horrible headline. So I don't know. If there were some way that I could build in an extra hour, I'd still do it, but we'll see.
Fair.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so just not a big use case yet. Yeah, not a ton for me either. I did recently use Perplexity to help me build a web app, kind of a basic retirement calculation, which I thought was really cool. I think that would be considered agentic. And then I think the only time is I had AI, I had a set of parameters, and then it helped me build a spreadsheet. Verified everything, made sure things looked correct, but that was a cool way to kind of put the prompt in, make sure we got the prompt right, and then able to walk away. Maybe I took Perla for a WALK. She's in the room, can't say it. And when I got back, boom, there's a mostly done spreadsheet, and then of course a little bit of tinkering, but I'm not using it day to day, I wouldn't say.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, that really is the beauty of it, is that every now and then you can do that, like, oh, and then I'll just move on to this task while you're working in the background. And so, yeah, I love it. And may we see more of it in good use cases and compliant ways.
Absolutely.
So the last bit of news this week is from InvestorCOM and IRALogix, which are partnering together to provide a more comprehensive view of clients' full retirement picture. So apparently I was a little quote happy this week. I thought that this quote from the CEO of IRALogix was really good. It said, "The process of moving accounts and assets from a 401k record keeper to an IRA has been a paper-based manual process for too long, with recommendation engines on one side and IRA administration on the other, and the investor caught in between," which seemed very much appropriate. As somebody, granted it wasn't an IRA, but as somebody who's been caught in the middle of trying to move retirement assets, completely agree, and it's ridiculous. So I would love to get your thoughts on how needed this is and how helpful it might be.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, sometimes, depending on who the 401k company is, or a 403b, we'll just call it retirement account, it can be a pain, an absolute pain to get it over when you're simply trying to go from 401k to IRA. And the client is like, yes, I want to do this for whatever reasons agreed upon. And it ends up being a very big nuisance. I mean, I think we were talking about a gold medallion guarantee for those. You never hardly ever see those. Almost no one even knows what that means. You could be in the industry for a while and somehow not, or actually fortunately not have come across something like that. But even recently, working with a 401k company, a lot of them are able to process things over the phone, or they can send you the document that the client would need to fill out, at least in real time. Well, not in this particular case. I won't shout them out in a negative way on the show today, but they said, oh yeah, we will send you a form in the client secure portal in the next 30 minutes. So now if we had any questions on the form, we don't have someone on the line to walk through. And now it's several weeks later and I still haven't been able to connect with my client because I'm going to have to likely help them fill out that form just to make it a little bit easier on them. But now they've gotten busy versus if it was a normal process, like most companies, that 401k probably is already rolled over into an IRA, and that's the client's wishes. So these companies, I think, intentionally make it tough so they can keep on to these assets for a little bit longer or for quite some time longer, because in this case, yes, I'm an advisor. I'm going to be proactive. I'm going to follow up with the client to make sure that we get this transferred over. I've got a vested interest in doing so too. I acknowledge that. But for a lot of people, let's say it's a do-it-yourselfer and they just want to get it to their own IRA, they might just throw their hands up in the air, say, screw it. I'm just going to leave it at XYZ, crappy custodian, intentional use of words there. And it just stays there for quite some time and they can continue to collect fees. So I will end my rant currently, but yes, this is a big deal. Anything that makes it easier to get 401ks to where the client wants it to be, I think is a good thing.
So I'm going to take a guess that I know who you're talking about, but I don't know if anybody else does. I'll confer with you later and see if I was correct. But yeah, so in this whole process, as somebody who, for better or worse, beginning of my career, I basically stayed in a job a year and then flipped over and flipped over and flipped over. You've got a million different little teeny tiny things that you want to eventually consolidate into one. Otherwise, you're like, I don't know, did I forget about that one? Do I even care? Maybe it was $600, but it's still $600 that I saved. Why does this have to be so difficult?
Yeah. So I think anything that's going to make that easier is going to be huge. And so I love the quote that you shared, but then also in the article, I'd like to find this actual study that it quoted, but it said Russell Investments 2025 study values advisor guidance at roughly 4.87% annually. Now, obviously, I've got some bias in appreciating this, but I now want to go and find that study to see what it ends up entailing, where just another example on why working with a financial planner can potentially be valuable. Of course, we can argue all day long about the exact percentages and how the studies are formulated, but I mean, that's a pretty substantial amount of potential alpha, likely not just because of investment performance, but another good reason to consider working with a solid financial planner.
So I'm glad that you explained that. The way that it was phrased, and maybe it's just me not being within the industry really, I was like, I don't know, like 4, is that bad? Was it that you guys, added that level of alpha like you were mentioning? So, okay, good to know. Thank you for explaining that. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I'm right on that. I still need to go and check out the Russell's study that they quoted. But yeah, that was interesting because Vanguard's come out with their Advisor Alpha study. They've done that over the years. And usually theirs is, now I kind of forget off the top of my head, 1.5% to 2%, or maybe it's even 3%. I can't remember exactly. And again, each situation is going to be different. And sometimes a lot of that value can happen in a single year. I mean, even just if a do-it-yourselfer is going to sell in 2008, for example, if they just hold on and they don't sell and an advisor helped them not sell, kind of harder to quantify because, again, an advisor leading with you need to work with me because I'm going to help you from being dumb, probably not going to be a very good marketing strategy. Although the behavioral side and just making sure that you feel more confident and someone doesn't sell if and when there is a market decline is a huge amount of value, just a little bit tougher to quantify or share out loud.
It does make you wonder. I understand what you're saying, that pointing out that the average investor is not savvy probably doesn't help. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, you know what? How many times have I made dumb financial decisions? And if somebody could have stopped me from making them, that would have been great. So at the same time, I feel like there's a way to tweak that marketing messaging in there to be like, yeah, do you want to stop yourself from doing XYZ stupid thing? Call me.
I think there's got to be something to it, whether it's some people have weird feelings towards the term accountability. Some like it, some don't. But I mean, it definitely is. If nothing else, it's someone to talk to that you can be frustrated with and could ask questions if and when the market's down, even if you already know what's going to happen. It's like, hey, well, at least I've got a guy or a gal to call into, and I know they'll be able to explain things in a rational way, empathize, lead with all of that understanding. And by the end of that call, although nothing has changed in the account necessarily, hopefully that client walks away feeling like, okay, my person's got me. We've got a plan in place. We know that this sucks to see our account go down, but I have someone to call. And I think that alone, even if they wouldn't have sold by themselves, peace of mind gets thrown around as a buzzword too. But I think there truly can be some peace knowing that, hey, we have a plan. We're updating the plan and I have someone I can talk to. Ends up being a decent amount of value in my humble opinion.
Yeah. So just to put a pin in this last one, since this partnership between InvestorCOM and IRALogix is helping assets move more seamlessly and easier between various retirement accounts, do you mind explaining like why some accounts are more difficult to move in between than others?
Yeah, I think a lot of it really depends on the custodian. So the custodian is going to be the one that manages the assets for a 401k. So that could be a Fidelity, Empower. Those are two. TIAA. Those are a few of the larger ones. Again, I still think that my theory and a lot of other advisors' theory of just making it a little bit more challenging because they want to keep assets on the platform, not even being cheeky or anything like that. I do think that is that's a part of it. But I think too, we've talked about this before, and anyone even somewhat familiar with the financial services industry probably understands how far behind we are from a technological perspective compared to a lot of other things. We've talked on this podcast, Allie, about companies moving more away from paper, actual paper. So if we start talking about some of these processes in place, these are just really outdated processes. And we're used to, we can get money to and from checking to savings in 3 taps of a button. Whereas now there's processes behind the scenes where it might take a human being to approve things and decline things, even for something that's relatively simple, like a 401k transfer. Or another thing that could make it tough too is if there's issues on the company or the former employer side, where if HR hasn't let the custodian know that Allie has left her job at XYZ company, well, any of this easy automation, even if a company has that, now doesn't work because someone, probably a human, didn't click the right button somewhere and it thinks that Allie still works at XYZ company and therefore can't roll out her 401k, when in reality you don't work there, but the system doesn't know it. So I think just a lot of rambling to say outdated processes, probably not a whole lot of desire to necessarily fix them because they do create enough friction to keep more assets on the platform. But yeah, I'd say those are probably the big reasons from my mini rant here.
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
I was the one who asked you to do it. So thank you for giving that information to all of us. May there be more innovations like this that just make things a lot easier for people because we've already got enough headaches in our lives. We don't really need one more. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, I agree. Just make things simple and efficient. We talk about that a lot on the show. More simple, more efficient a lot of things can be. I'm in favor.
Absolutely. Well, have a great week. And thank you as always for doing this.
Yep. Thanks so much, Allie. This was a lot of fun as always.
Thank you.